How's it going, everyone? Real quick, I just wanted to put together this video just to show you the value of Claude 3.5 Sonnet and where I think it actually shines the most. I know over the past couple months, people have been talking about how Claude is either amazing at coding or it's like really terrible at coding. And I think that a lot of people, the majority of people, in fact, have been overlooking the main benefit and the main value of the system in being a part of the CI/CD pipeline and actually testing and debugging the code. I think that's the number one value proposition of the software. And I'm pretty much about to go through the whole process and show you why I believe that is. The reason why I'm taking on this, I'm actually using this framework, is mainly for coding. And the reason why I want to have a self-hosted model on my own system is because when I'm using Claude 3.5 Sonnet, I use it a lot, right? I do a lot of testing. I do a lot of code generation with it, a lot of actually testing that code, just trying to see what its limits are. And even though I'm paying $20 a month for the pro subscription, I'm still running out of tokens. And it's pretty crazy that I'm paying, again, $25 a month, $30 a month, and I'm still not able to really get the usage out of the model that I really want. A lot of people have been saying over the past couple months, like, hey, we need to have some type of tier to where we can pay more for more tokens or more, access to the model, which is 100% true. I'm not really sure why, Claude and, ChatGPT, all these other companies, Anthropic, obviously, OpenAI, these companies haven't implemented some type of system to where, again, people can pay more to use more. It just makes sense, but I'm not really sure what's going on with that. But anyway, I came across this framework for PyTorch. I know that it's basically hosted by Meta, and essentially what this framework allows you to do is to easily download LLMs and start working with it in your own environment. Now, unfortunately, I do not have the actual LLM on my system right now. It was actually on the old version of my system. Basically, what was going on was this laptop itself was shipped to me with Windows 11 on it. When I was using Windows 11, even before I downloaded like VS Code, even before I tried downloading any self-hosted models, I was constantly having crashes. So for example, I would just boot in to my laptop, not running Google Chrome, not doing anything, and already the RAM usage was at like 80%. Now I know, a lot of people say that, just looking at RAM usage is not necessarily the most accurate way of testing and seeing how your system is doing. But at the same time, again, it's pretty insane to just hop into your computer, not even download anything, not even use anything, and you're already using the vast majority of your memory just to turn the computer on. That's just completely unacceptable. And even beyond that, when I was actually using Google Chrome and I had like 4 or 5 tabs open, I would be at like almost a 90% RAM utilization, and the system would be constantly, glitching. It would slow down a lot. Also, another point is the laptop would be burning hot, like it would be super hot. And again, I'm just doing basic tasks. And this is not like a cheap laptop or a bad laptop. It's an Alienware. So it should be up to some sort of standard to where it's not overheating just from using Google Chrome. But again, I was having that issue and it was just extremely annoying. So it got to a breaking point to where like literally 2 days ago, I was using Google Chrome and I had a blue screen crash. I was just using it, and then all of a sudden, the blue screen came on, and my system restarted. I went through the process of repairing it, of the system checking itself. It said nothing was wrong. I booted back into my laptop, and then as I went into Google Chrome and I started using that, it did a crash again. Like it literally crashed 2 times in a row within the span of like 2 to 3 minutes. And at that point, I was just like, you know what? I'm just completely done with this. I want this out of my system. And that's when I was actually looking to download Linux. And I was looking for, I was comparing a couple different distributions. I was comparing, Arch Linux, Ubuntu, another one, Debian. But I did come across something that piqued my interest, and it was actually Kubuntu. So I have that downloaded right now, and so far, it's been extremely efficient. It's been perfect for me. The only downside of Kubuntu is the fact that I cannot run the games that I want to run on my system. That really sucks. That's really unfortunate. And I really don't like that. So I am going to have to essentially bring uh, Windows 11 Pro back onto my system. However, I am using a software to where instead of just actually, downloading the stuff from the main website, I can download a custom ISO to where I'm not having to take on a bunch of bloatware and just clog up my system and go from there. So yeah, basically where I'm at right now is I just literally downloaded this last night. I was up pretty late trying to get this all set up, and I can at least take you through the process of downloading the LLM and actually generating some code on your own. So this is the GitHub repository for TorChat. As you can see right here, it just takes you through all the things that you can do with it. It's pretty simple, just getting it set up. Again, the main issue I was having was actually getting the dependencies for PyTorch actually working together. Because basically the way that it works is, in order to get this to work, you need to have like 3 to 4 different frameworks have compatible versions with each other, or else it's not going to work. So for example, you need to have CUDA and PyTorch on the same architecture, on the same system. I'm going to show you that in a second. So as you can see right here, this is the place where you would download PyTorch. This is actually going to allow you to self-host LLMs on your PC or laptop. Now, as you can see, there's a bunch of different versions. There's a bunch of different OSs. You have, Windows, Mac, Linux, different package managers, languages, so on and so forth. But the main thing is you need to get this correct, like this version, and this correct right here. So when I tried using the stable version 2.4.0, and I was actually on Windows, I would set it up in this way to where I would have the stable version, this on Windows. I use the pip manager because that's mostly used through Python. Obviously, I had it on Python, and the CUDA version was 12.1. However, when I tried downloading it in this configuration, it was completely incompatible with my system. I believe there were several files within this version that was just completely messing up on my system. So I went through like literally hours and hours trying to like get it to work, trying to optimize it, just trying to make sure it was actually going through, but it just would not work on my system. So what I ended up doing was I just used the nightly version instead, right? Had it on Windows, pip, and I had it all the way to CUDA 12.4, which is not the latest version. The latest version is actually 12.5, which is unfortunately, as far as I can see, is not 100% compatible with PyTorch. But again, I have 12.4 on the system. It's at least good enough for right now, and I'm not really missing out on too many features. Most of the features within 12.5 are going to be experimental and not 100% necessary for what I want to do. But in this configuration, the nightly, the pip, having the pip package manager within Python and using CUDA 12.4, I was actually able to get the environment set up pretty quickly through this configuration. Now, the main bottleneck that's been preventing me from getting this model up and running quickly is this thing right here. This has been an absolute pain in the ass to deal with. It has caused so much havoc. Like just constantly thinking about this thing, it just makes me fucking mad as hell. Because again, the whole purpose, or not the whole purpose, but one of the main purposes of this framework is essentially it'll route certain tasks from your GPU to the CPU. So if you don't have like the strongest GPU, if your GPU is not good enough, or if you don't think it's good enough for certain tasks, then you would use a service like this, a library like this, excuse me, and of course it would route certain tasks from the GPU to the CPU. The problem is on certain platforms, certain hardwares, this is just not compatible at all. There's just too many issues going on, too many issues with it. This is not compatible with a lot of other dependencies that are necessary on your system, and it just ends up being a complete pain in the ass just trying to figure out which dependency is actually compatible with this library, and juggling that with all the other dependencies that you also need to have the versions compatible with in order to get everything to work. So what I ended up doing was the first thing that Claude mentioned to me as a potential fix, was to just rename this to a different file, and then that would pretty much, like, the system would prevent itself from actually trying to call this file. Unfortunately, that didn't really work because it just tried to call the file again from the new name. So it didn't really change anything. I pretty much said to Claude, like, you know what? I want to completely disable the file. I went through that process and I got that done. I completely disabled and removed all files, both the original one right here, and the newly named file. And that's was one of the major things that allowed me to get this up and running pretty quickly. Now, again, I did mention earlier that one of the main points of using this system, Claude 3.5, is the fact that it's so good at testing and debugging. Not necessarily with the code generation part. I mean, it's pretty decent. It is the best out of all the models. But in terms of comparing it to like a senior programmer, most like 98% of senior programmers kind of they already understand that, like, yeah, it's not really the best for code generation. You know, I can write way better code. XYZ is pretty much these models right now. If we could compare them to humans, they would be on the level of like a high schooler who takes, honors classes or potentially AP. They're pretty much on that level for right now. But as you can see, I had some issues earlier in this conversation with the framework, so I just went through the process and said, you know what, I want to completely disable it and move forward. And it took me through all this process right here. So of course it says to disable it, we'll rename it so that PyTorch can't load it. That didn't work. However, one of the fixes that did work was the fact that we go over here and it says install the nightly build. The current installation still doesn't work with 12.5. Ultimately, I don't believe the nightly version was 100% compatible with 12.5. When I switched back to 12.4, that's what really made this possible to actually work together and to not have as many issues as I did in the past. So right here's an example of how you can just check your actual hardware capabilities at a glance from the command line. So you just put in NVIDIA-SMI and this sort of matrix will come up. You can see the actual driver version of 560. You can see the actual driver version. You can see the CUDA version 12.6 and some more of the information as well. Obviously, you can see NVIDIA RTX 4070 and the actual wattage and how much power is being used from the system, and also the GPU memory usage as well. Also, another thing you have to keep in mind is which package manager are you actually using in your environment, right? So, for example, when Claude is giving you certain information, certain tips and tricks to actually optimize your environment, a lot of times it'll give you commands for either, like, for example, if you're using command prompt and it's actually giving you commands for PowerShell or vice versa, or using a certain type of environment, but you're not actually using the other environment that Claude is giving you commands for. So you really have to make sure to be explicit in which environments and which OS you're using. All of these different things, you need to put that in from the very first message. Like, hey, this is my GPU, this is how much RAM I have, this is my CPU, this is the environment I'm working in. I'm working in Linux or Windows, and pretty much this is what I want to do. And you go from there. You really have to be explicit in the information that you're giving it on your environment, because it will give you good information, but it won't be relevant to you because, again, it doesn't know that you're using command prompt and you're not using PowerShell or some other terminal. So these are just some of the things that you have to keep in mind when you're setting up your environment, trying to run a self-hosted LLM. I know this is kind of disjointed, but I am going to be remaking this video periodically just to make it more concise, more coherent, and to have the information be sequentially correct. But just for right now, I am going to be pushing out a lot more videos so I can get that process done. And then once I get to a video I really think has the entire process of downloading the dependencies, setting up your environment, and having that all correct and in correct order, I will be posting in the community tab post on my YouTube channel, telling people that, hey, this is going to be the definitive guide for getting your environment ready for self-hosted LLMs and using that from your system.